All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the Heated Sports Podcast. My name's Justin Imler. Across from me, I have Zach Henley. We're going to be your weekly co-host of the Heated Sports Podcast. If you're not already familiar with what Heated Sports is, it's essentially just a small sports media brand that I've started here at Millersville University with a really solid team of my friends here behind me. Currently, right now, we have a website/blog where we put out several articles a week pertaining to a lot of the more popular and relevant sports topics that are happening at the time. Our website is www.heated-sports.com. We also have several social media accounts with Instagram and Twitter, both of those being at @heatedsports_. So basically, we just kind of have a lot of things established. We keep up on a lot of the breaking news happening throughout the sports world, as well as writing on various topics, various sports that we find interesting and we think our viewers would really like to be engaged with. So before we get started into the main sports topics we have going on, I'll take it over to Zach, and he'll kind of do a quick introduction, just so you guys can get to know us a little bit here.
All right, and I'm Zach, and I'm a sports journalism major here at Millersville, sophomore, and I'm usually a topic writer. And I focus in any sport. It's part of the four core, like hockey, basketball, football, and baseball. And yeah, I think Justin covered basically all. So
I was going to say, yeah, so that's just kind of a quick rundown. Like I said already, my name is Justin Imler. I'm kind of the main guy that started Heated Sports here. I recruited a good bit of my friends, and we have a solid team here now. Right now, I'm a junior here at Millersville University as well. I'm a marketing and a management major. I'm a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so that's going to be my favorite football team. I follow pretty much every other sport pretty religiously. For baseball, I'm more of a Phillies fan, which if people are going to question that in the comments why I'm Philly and Pittsburgh, I can defend myself a little later on. Along with that, I'm a big Sixers guy as well. Started rooting for the Sixers a lot. A lot of my friends are diehard Sixers fans, trusting the process, so I'm a big fan with them as well. What I do for Heated Sports, I do a little bit of everything. I'm one of the weekly writers, so I enjoy writing a lot of the articles and kind of keeping up to date with a lot of the happenings going on in the sports world. I run a lot of the social media accounts as well, so it's kind of cool to keep up with the breaking news that way as well. All right, so that's enough about us. If you guys have any more questions about us in particular, feel free to let us know down in the comments. Right now, we're going to kick it off with a heated question, and essentially this is going to be a weekly topic that we have where we kind of just want to go over a specific question, a specific debate that's kind of going on in the sports world at the time. Right now, we picked our first question for the first episode to be our top 5 most impactful NFL offseason moves so far. So basically, the two of us made a top 5 list. We're just going to count them down. What moves in the free agency market so far we thought were most impactful for the league, pretty big game changers and things like that. So I'll just go ahead and go with my list here first. Number 5, I have Jets signing C.J. Mosley to a 5-year, $85 million contract. This is really a big move, and I think C.J. Mosley was arguably the best defensive player in this year's free agency market. Mosley is still pretty young, but he has a lot of experience and a lot of big leadership presence coming from Baltimore. I think him and Jamal Adams side by side, I think, will be a really tough duo to compete with in the AFC, so that's going to be a young and upcoming defense for sure. Over here at number 4, I have the Rams signing Eric Weddle to a 2-year, $12.5 million contract. Weddle's getting up there in age a little bit, but it honestly doesn't seem like it. He's one of the top safeties in the league still, and honestly, signing to a 2-year deal I think is beneficial to both sides. You have the Rams, who are still in a win now presence, essentially, obviously coming off of a tough Super Bowl loss, but they still have a lot of pieces in place where they're ready to compete for a Super Bowl for the next few years. So I think signing this safety, replacing LaMarcus Joyner, who signed with Oakland, I think Weddle is definitely an upgrade in that position, so I think it's a smart move for both sides. Over here at number 3, I have the Lions signing defensive end Trey Flowers. Obviously breaking the bank a little bit. 5 years, $90 million is what they ended up signing him for. Trey Flowers is a really big defensive sign, so I think the Lions really needed an upgrade at that position. And obviously Trey Flowers coming from New England, as well as the Lions head coach Matt Patricia, I think really that's going to be a nice move because they're both obviously already going to be comfortable with each other. They have a lot of experience playing together, coaching together, so I think that's a good sign for Detroit going forward. Number 2, probably arguably the biggest news, we have the Jets signing Le'Veon Bell to a 4-year, $52 million contract. Arguably, I think Le'Veon was the biggest free agent on the market, offense and defense, so Le'Veon obviously committing to the Jets. Not so much of a surprise. It's kind of where the team that a lot of people were expecting him to go, but I think it's really cool. And it's a new environment for him. A huge piece for Sam Darnold going into his second year. I think the Jets still have some work to do on offense. I think they need a lot more pieces in place to compete in that division with New England still being a presence, but signing Le'Veon is obviously a huge step in the right direction. And coming in at number 1 isn't a signing, but it's kind of the obvious one. I have the Browns trading for wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., taking the top spot. Odell's obviously a clear number 1 receiver, top 3 receiver in the league right now, in my opinion. You have Jarvis Landry over there as well. I think he's a clear number 2 receiver going across from Odell. I don't think he's obviously like a clear-cut number 1. So the fact that you have Odell being a top 3 guy on one end and then Jarvis Landry a very solid complement on the other end, I think is huge. You have Baker Mayfield coming into a second year, so adding another weapon for him balances the offense out a lot after signing Kareem Hunt, and you have Nick Chubb there with the running game. So I think it's going to be huge, massive shakeup in the AFC and the AFC North as well. So that's my list. That's what I have. Zach, what do you got, man? Any comparisons, any similarities? What do you got over here?
I think there's only one similarity, and that's Le'Veon Bell. But for number 5, I have the Buffalo Bills signing 3 receivers. And I think this is important because I think Josh Allen can actually like live up to his expectations now. And has deep ball threats as in like John Brown, Andre Roberts. Cole Beasley, I don't think can go that deep as he used to.
I'll say he's more of a slot guy for sure, yeah.
But like John Brown can definitely go deep. He caught passes from Joe Flacco easily. So number 4, I have Jason Witten coming out of retirement. And I think it's important because I think he's going to take over the head coaching job. And
that's what Adam Scheffler said something literally right after it happened. Yes, that's definitely something to think about.
Jason Garrett really hasn't done anything. He's like 2 to 3 playoff wins. And I think they're just done with him. The entire team, I think, is just done with him as well.
It definitely seems like it for sure.
Number 3, I have Le'Veon signing with the New York Jets as well. And then it's less money than he would have signed with Pittsburgh. It's like $10 million less. Number 2 is Dee Ford, traded to the San Francisco 49ers for a second-round pick on the 2020 draft. And I think this is important because San Francisco is going to win the West next
You think so?
Yeah, definitely. The Rams have too many like people they need to keep track of.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think Sean McVay is going to be as good as he was next year. Jared Goff isn't that great of a quarterback, I don't think, either.
I think the weapons definitely help him for sure. I mean, Ndamukong Suh is going to be gone. We don't know where he's signing with as of today, but he's obviously going to be gone. Gurley, huge question mark. Not really sure what his like availability, let alone like health, is going to be come the start of the season, or what his productivity will be. So that's definitely a weapon that's in like a big question right now.
I don't know what McVay was doing in the Super Bowl at all.
No,
he wasn't really using him at all. And Jared Goff showed that he can't play under pressure, under big games at least.
Yeah.
And number 1, I have Antonio Brown traded to the Oakland Raiders, and I think Derek Carr and Antonio Brown already have the connection they made at the Pro Bowl 2 years ago, and Derek Carr can get back to his MVP level like play. Yeah, so
for sure. I'll say I do agree with you there. I didn't have AB on my list. I have a little honorable mention section here. I had Antonio on there. Honestly, I think AB is going to be a big impact, obviously being another top 3 receiver in my opinion here, going to a new team. I just think Oakland has a lot more pieces that they still need to add on their team to be an actual threat come playoff time. So, I mean, adding one piece is obviously AB is a big piece to add, but I still think they have a lot of work to do. But the fact that they saved their 3 first-round picks and getting Antonio Brown, I think, is the most impressive thing.
Do you think Kitchens can handle Odell Beckham, though?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to see. I mean, he's not very a loud and like boisterous guy, I don't think. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see like what's going to happen behind the scenes to kind of keep track of everybody, but it's going to be interesting. That's definitely one of the big question marks with Cleveland going forward, so we'll have to see how it goes and just go from there.
That's why they're not on my list. I don't think, I mean, it's a huge trade obviously, but I don't think that's going to play out well during the first year.
Yeah.
And I think they're just getting overhyped.
No, I agree with you for sure. I'm just going to shout out my Pittsburgh Steelers here one time because nobody's talking about Steven Nelson, and obviously he's not that big of a name, but Pittsburgh doesn't like go into free agency very much, so I'm excited for him. Pittsburgh needs a clear cornerback across from Joe Hayden, so I'm excited for Steven Nelson. He's improved just overall in his play the last few years from what I've watched and what I've researched here a little bit, so that's just a signing that obviously isn't in a top 5 list like category or should be, but I'm excited for it, so I'm giving him a shout out real quick.
What are your thoughts on Joe Hayden, though? Do you think he's like a number 1 cornerback?
I think so. He goes up against the number 1 guys. He shut down Julio in their game against the Falcons last year. He's usually pretty good going against their number 1 guy. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a top 5, top 3 corner in all of football, but I love him. He's an emotional guy. He's a big leader on the defense after only being on the team for his 2nd year last year, so he's made his presence known. I'm excited for him, like continuing his career with Pittsburgh, but it's definitely nice to have a secure number 2 guy across from him because that's definitely their biggest need right now.
And do you think Big Ben will retire after the season?
No way.
Or Mike Tomlin's gone. I know Mike Tomlin's not going to leave because Pittsburgh has a history of keeping coaches forever.
Barring a serious injury, Ben's going to stay 100%. They're already in the works of getting an extension for him. So it's in negotiation right now. It's not official, but it's definitely going to happen. As far as Tomlin goes, I haven't been a fan of him for a while. If they for some reason don't make the playoffs again, I think it's time. After all the drama and everything, all the drama queens are gone. Le'Veon and AB are gone. See what Tomlin can do now that the team's for the most part back together and should hopefully die down as far as like the outside noise and distractions. So we'll have to see how it goes, but yeah, we'll definitely take it year by year essentially. But yeah, Pittsburgh doesn't give up on coaches very easily.
Yeah, exactly.
So. All right, so we're going to transition to the next topic here, and that topic's going to be Kyler Murray. Zach and I have very conflicting opinions on Kyler Murray and what we think his future is going to be in the NFL, so I'll give it to Zach here first and kind of see what you think. And I mean, I know what you think, but tell them what you think. We'll kind of go from there.
So I think several teams need Kyler Murray, and I don't think Arizona is like one of them right now. I think it's been 1 year for Josh Rosen. Obviously, he's not a great quarterback, but like he really didn't have anything around him other than like Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald. But Fitzgerald's old, and he signed a 1-year contract. But I really think they need to focus on defense. And they had signed Terrell Suggs, and I think he's a good leader in the locker room. At least.
He's old though.
Yeah, he is. He signed like 1 or 2 year contract. Not entirely sure.
I think it was 2 years. Yeah.
Like I think he has that like leadership that like he can lead the defense too. And they had 20th rated defense, and they allowed 155 rushing yards per game. So I think even though Bose is like an edge rusher or whatever, like he can still stop the run and help the defense. And I honestly think that Kyler Murray could slip to the Buccaneers or even the Giants, because they like the top 3 teams are Cardinals.
You have 49ers at 2.
Yeah, and who's number 3?
That's tough. I'm honestly not even sure. Yeah, I'll look it up real quick. But yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely true that there's really no teams that need quarterbacks until the Giants, and I think the Giants are up at 6.
Jets.
The Jets have 3, yeah.
And they had Darnold, so.
They don't need a quarterback. The Jets need, I think, more defensive help, but they could use some weapons for Darnold, like I said. So I could see them, or even the Cardinals, maybe trading out of their top picks for teams that do need quarterbacks.
I don't think they're going to trade out of the first pick at all.
Don't think so?
No, not at all. And
just go after Bosa?
Yeah, exactly. And Buccaneers are 5, so I mean, I don't know how Jameis Winston is right now.
I don't know if they believe in him or want him for the future. Exactly. That's the issue, I think, right now.
And then maybe he can even. I mean, Giants obviously want Haskins. He obviously is like the #1 target. But
people are saying they're gonna have to trade up for him, though. That's
really?
what a lot of people are saying. Yeah, that happens in every draft.
Yeah,
everybody has their predictions, and all right, the draft is laid out. These are the picks, but everybody needs quarterbacks, and even if the quarterbacks shouldn't be drafted top 5, they're all getting traded for. Like picks are being traded. Sense, quarterbacks are going in the top 5, so it'll be interesting. I'm excited for it. My opinions are obviously a little different, and you know this already. I love Kyler Murray. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the league. I think the Cardinals need to take him #1, and if they don't, they're going to regret it 100%. All my friends know this. You know this because I talk crap on him all the time. I am not a fan of Josh Rosen, and I'm not just saying this now to hype up Kyler Murray. I have not been a fan of him. Did not think he played well last year. Not saying it's all his fault. Like you said, with the weapons and the O-line, definitely needs some work. But I'm just not a fan of Rosen. I just don't think he has any personality to him. I'm not saying you need to have a personality, but if you're the quarterback, you have to be the clear emotional leader of the team. Going back to the draft, I wasn't a fan of him in that draft class. There was a great quarterback draft class with Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Baker. I had Rosen at the very bottom of that list when ranking those prospects. Did not like him at UCLA at all. I think Arizona needs to move on from him if they can. With that being said, though, I don't think you should just give up on him completely. I think you need to try to shop some trades for him before the draft, see what you can get. But if you can't get at least a second-round pick, late second-round pick, I think you hold on to him and stash him, but you still got to take Murray first overall.
The Giants.
I think Murray's a much more emotional leader. I think he can definitely take the team around him, even though it's more like quiet and behind the scenes at Oklahoma. I think the one thing that you need to be concerned about, though, isn't his size, like everybody's saying, but it has to just be his experience. He started 17 games in his college career. You look at his predecessor in Baker Mayfield, he had 3 seasons of starting under his belt. People were concerned about his size, but you had 3 years of footage and 3 years of tape of what he could do. Murray, you only have 1 year, 17 games. So that's really the one concern that I would have. But I mean, I think you're crazy if you're the Cardinals not taking this guy and you're going to pass on him. But it is tough. It's interesting to see. It's like you said, they obviously have a lot of other needs, but quarterback's the most important position in football. If you're not a believer in Rosen like me, I think it's crazy not to take Murray first overall. But we'll have to wait and see.
What about the Bengals or Dolphins? I think Andy Dalton's a bust. I think he had his prime year.
I don't know. Dalton didn't play too bad last year, the first chunk of the season. Then he ended up getting hurt in the back half. I mean, they're in the AFC North, so I'm fine if Dalton wants to stay like the rest of his career over there. But I definitely don't think he's like a playoff, a guy to carry his team into the playoffs year by year. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say it's all his fault for the Bengals' struggles, but they could definitely use somebody. Miami is an interesting one that you bring up. They obviously signed my boy Fitzmagic to a 1 or 2 year contract, 2-year deal. But essentially,
to back up,
people are rumoring that they're planning on drafting someone high next year. The quarterback class next year is going to be ridiculous. You have Tua out of Alabama. You have Jake Fromm. You have a lot of prospects coming out, and apparently they're already betting on taking Tua. That's a report that I've heard from a few reliable sources on social media, guys like Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport. Those guys were all rumoring that at least. Obviously, we don't know that's for sure, but I mean, that's a pretty solid plan if you think about it. Get Fitzmagic for a year or two. He's a good starter. He'll win you some games, but at the same time, it sounds like they're probably not trying to win that many games.
No,
they're planning for the next year's draft. So
it's like the NFL version of tanking.
It's interesting, yeah, exactly. I'll say you don't see it often, but it sounds like that might be the plan. So Dolphins fans, I just say hold out a little bit.
Potential
sounds like future quarterback of the future will be coming next year. So that's definitely something to look out for. But yeah, that's all we have on the Murray debate. Obviously, we have two conflicting sides. So let us know what you think in the comments. Obviously, there's really only two ways to go about it. What do you think the Cardinals should do with that first overall pick? Are you a believer in Kyler Murray, or do you think they should maybe move on or go somewhere else like a Nick Bosa, or maybe even trading that number 1 pick to get some more draft capital, obviously, since they have a lot of needs to go for. But we'll keep it at that. We'll move on here. Some of the other breaking news that actually happened a few days ago is Mike Trout signing that record-breaking extension with the Los Angeles Angels. I didn't realize this at the time, but it's the largest sports contract in history. All sports throughout everything. $430 million over 12 years. Absolutely insane. Don't even know what you would do with that money as a baseball player, to be honest. But that's what he signed. He's staying in LA. I personally hate this. Mike Trout's been my favorite player. I've played baseball my whole life. Love baseball to death. Mike Trout's been my favorite player since he's been in the league. And the fact that he's not going to be in the playoffs very much his whole career, or throughout his entire career, is extremely sad.
Not even 1 year?
He has 3 playoff games in his entire career so far, which is about 5 to 6 seasons. And that was 3 games back in 2014 where his team, the Angels, got swept by the Kansas City Royals that year. Did not play well in those 3 games, but needless to say, the fact that he's had 5-6 seasons and we've only seen the best player in baseball in the playoffs 3 times is just absurd. The world needs playoff Mike Trout. They need it on a consistent basis, and the fact that it's probably not going to happen is just extremely sad. Obviously, with speculation of Mike Trout testing free agency, he would have to play another 2 seasons with the Angels before he could do that. Teams like the Yankees and the Phillies, obviously with Bryce Harper signing there's been a lot of talks already looking forward to him testing free agency, but it's not going to happen. People are speculating if the Phillies and Bryce Harper making those comments kind of push this extension process a little more. That's obviously stuff that we don't know. It honestly seems like the Trout's going to be happy with his decision, though, or else he would have at least waited.
$430 million.
I was going to say, you really can't. It's tough to say no to that number for sure, and it's obviously tough to know if any of those other teams that would potentially be interested would offer that much. And I think that's something that a lot of people maybe aren't considering, or the fact that he could have a serious injury in the next 2 years. Obviously, fingers crossed that wouldn't happen regardless, but I mean, you never know, and I'm sure it's probably in the back of his mind. Take this money now, take the deal now. Why play another full 2 seasons until you can get this type of contract? So it makes sense. Obviously, he probably has a life in LA and he's happy there. So, I mean, as a guy, as a fan, I'm happy for him. But as a baseball fan, it's just disappointing because I think the world needs playoff Mike Trout, and I think they need it every year. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen with the Angels. So
who do they build around? Like, who do they have around him right now? Like, they haven't built anyone around him.
They don't have any, like, legitimate long-term pieces. I mean, obviously Pujols is there. He's on the back end of this long contract that they gave him. But he's aging. I mean, he's still putting up decent numbers as a DH and everything, but at the end of the day, he's an aging legend, essentially, obviously. So it's tough. I mean, there's really no other big-name guys around him. Signing one player to $430 million kind of limits your opportunities for the future of getting some long-term, like, legitimate pieces with them. So I mentioned to some friends earlier, it's a smart move for the Angels as a business decision as far as getting pieces in place, getting people in the seats for Mike Trout. You have the best player in baseball pretty much committing his entire career to your team. That's going to sell all the merchandise and all the tickets that you need that you could possibly imagine. But yeah, from a winning perspective, it's probably not the smartest move, but it seems like that's kind of where their head's at. Let's fill the seats. We have the best player in baseball. We can't let him go anywhere else. So that's pretty much where their mentality was with that.
you can definitely tell it's like a California team with that number.
For sure, yeah. So I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm happy for him. He obviously got the massive contract, so I'm still excited to watch him play this year. So we'll see how it ends out. Maybe the Angels will surprise some people. So I'll definitely be rooting for him.
I want the Angels to win now, just because they signed him to that large of a number.
Definitely, yeah. So we're going to move on to obviously the biggest current event that's happening in sports right now, and that's March Madness. And it's tough, so I'm not going to go into that much detail, but right now, while we're recording this, it's the first day. We have our brackets set up. We have everything made. Thank you for everyone who participated in the Heated Sports Bracket Challenge. We really appreciate you guys choosing us, submitting your brackets. We'll have some prizes out for some of the top performers, so we really appreciate you guys that were involved in that for us. But we're just going to kind of go over some of our picks, some of our Final Fours. Right now, we're recording this a few days early, so obviously things that we do say or some predictions we do make could be irrelevant by the time this is actually going out, so we're just going to keep it short and sweet and as simple as possible. So I'll kick it off to you. What do you got? Your Final Four?
My Final
Some teams
Four,
you're looking for?
Actually, I have
so let's see what you got.
5 teams that I'm looking out for, and it's Duke and UNC, obviously, because Zion. Then I have Tennessee, Oregon, and Florida State, and I think Oregon and Florida State are sleeper teams because no one really looks over them. And Florida State's actually a really strong team in a really strong conference, and Oregon's really hot right now, like a 6-game win streak. So, and they won the Pac-12.
Yeah, I was saying, I didn't realize they were on that much of a win streak.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're playing really well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Duke's going to win the entire thing because, like you said earlier, 3-point percentage and their defense is kind of iffy at times.
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely a different team with Zion in there, but I'm looking forward to at least watching him.
No, yeah, exactly.
We'll see how
I want Duke
goes,
and UNC in the final.
I think that's what the world needs it for sure.
No,
but if it happens, it's obviously a lot tougher than people make it out to be. Even though they're the clear-cut favorites, we know anything can happen in March Madness, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, Murray State beat Marquette today.
I'm going to get into that in a second because I'm not going to say I called it, but I definitely called it. But right now in my bracket, I made one this year, and this is the first time I've only made one bracket, but I honestly like that a little better because you have one team to root for each time. You don't have, okay, this bracket has this team, but this bracket I picked the other team. I don't like any of that anymore. One bracket, this is my Final Four. I got Michigan State, and I have them playing Gonzaga, and then I have Tennessee, and then I have North Carolina. So those are my 2 matchups, Michigan State, Gonzaga, Tennessee, North Carolina. In the finals, I have North Carolina beating Michigan State. So that's my Final Four. That's my matchup. People are obviously going to give me some crap for choosing Michigan State over Duke. But honestly, if Duke is going to lose it all in this tournament, it's going to be to Michigan State. Maybe North Carolina in the finals, but we saw what that team looks like with Zion matching up with them in the ACC tournament. But right now, this is what I got. I'm a believer in Michigan State. I honestly think they can make a run, even though they didn't look too great in their first matchup that we watched earlier today, but we'll have to wait and see. But my biggest sleeper team, like I mentioned, is going to be Murray State. John Morant is just absolutely ridiculous. I think he's the clear-cut number 2 pick in the draft. It looks like probably to the Cavaliers, if I had to guess right now. I think he's a definite game changer. They dominated Marquette. They won by 19.
Triple-double, too.
Yeah, I'll say Morant had a triple-double in the process, just completely lighting it up. So Murray State's a team to watch out for, I think, for sure. And yeah, that's what I got.
And they're a 12 seed.
I'll say, and they're a 12 seed. So the road that they have is going to be interesting. But I mean, I obviously look after this first game, looks like they'll be able to compete with anybody. So yeah, that's what we got for March Madness. Let us know who you have picked down below. Let us know some sleeper teams that maybe we didn't cover and we didn't talk about that we should have and that we should maybe be more aware about throughout the tournament that we can talk about next week. Yeah, so the next main topic that we're going to kind of get into here is just kind of transitioning to the NBA. Like we said, we're both Philadelphia 76ers fans, so we're big followers with the Eastern Conference and how competitive that's becoming, obviously, in the last few years, and especially this year with a lot of top teams kind of fighting for those top couple seeds. So what do you got here for us to kick things off?
Well, right now, the Sixers obviously won against the Celtics. That's a big win, yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, they're 2-10.
All caps.
They came in the
game
2-10. 2-10 since, like, last season or something. So that's, like, their kryptonite. And I think the teams to watch out for are the Magic, Pistons, Heat, and Nets. Heat and Nets, because they're fighting for the 6th through 8 seeds.
D'Angelo Russell's ridiculous.
No, yeah. He had 27 last night in the quarter. Like, it's insane for 44 total. And the Magic potentially could make the playoffs for the first time in like 5-6 seasons. So, and the Heat, they obviously want to make the playoffs for Dwayne Wade, and they're like his final season. And the Pistons, no one really talks about, but they actually have the 6th seed right now.
The Pistons are always in like that bottom section, but literally no one like realizes that they're kind of in the playoff hunt until they are, and like the playoffs are around, and then the Pistons are here again.
They have the players. They have Reggie Jackson, Griffin, and Drummond. So like they just need to put that all together on a game, like a solid night, and they can win.
Compete for a series too. That's the tough thing. Anybody can put it together for one game. That's what worries me with the Sixers and the Celtics. Yeah, they did it for one game. Play them in a series, though. I think a lot of Philly fans are probably going to be worried if that matchup becomes a reality. But
if it's not the Sixers, the Celtics struggle. Looks like in the conference.
Exactly. So it's interesting. I would say the top seeds right now. Again, this is a few days early, but right now, as it stands while we're recording, we have the Bucks as the obvious 1 seed. Raptors are the 2 seed, being 2 games behind the Bucks, followed by Sixers, Pacers, and then Celtics. So the Sixers are obviously on pace. They're probably gonna, if I had to guess, they're just gonna stay right at the 3 seed. I don't see them really falling back. They're 3 games ahead of the Pacers right now to secure that 3 seed. Already clinched a playoff spot the other day with their win over the Hornets. So it's going to be good to see them going forward. And just kind of see how it all plays out. I mean, we'll obviously have to wait and see who they're going to play and, like, come playoff time. But, I mean, I think a lot of Philly fans are going to be excited. So, all right, yeah, sorry, guys. We'll have to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with you. All right, guys, sorry about that. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're back now. We're going to keep talking about the Eastern Conference here a little bit. It's definitely interesting to see who the Celtics are going to match, or the Sixers are going to match up with, but we'll obviously have to wait and see. But I think it's a good time to be a Philly fan. Sixers are going to compete regardless. I think there's definitely a good shot they can make a run, especially after the last few games. Beating the Celtics obviously is a huge win, and just mentality-wise too.
Definitely.
I think that's
6-game win streak. So
a really nice boost for the team, knowing they can beat the team that's had their number for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
So
crushed them in the past,
so obviously that'll be huge, I think, going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the East plays out. But again, we'll just kind of have to wait and see, and we'll go from there. So the last main thing I want to bring up, and honestly I want to get your opinion, Zach, because I'm going to be a little biased talking about the AFC North. So obviously a lot of people are doubting on my Steelers right now. Odell, I mentioned in my top 5 list, Odell going to the Cleveland Browns. How do you think that actually is going to shake up the AFC? Are you buying in all the hype with the AFC, the new AFC North champs, quote unquote, actually being a legitimate threat in the AFC, or do you think it's a little too soon to speculate on that kind of stuff?
I think they could be a threat, like a potential threat. I wouldn't say like a Super Bowl kind of contender threat, but maybe just like a wild card team, or maybe even like barely missing the playoffs and showing potential for the next years. Because the Ravens aren't obviously as good as they were the last season because they lost a few good pieces, and Lamar Jackson really hasn't shown that he can throw the ball. And the Bengals, they're going to be at the bottom because they don't really have anything else.
Yeah,
like they're trying to shop for John Ross or something like that, shop in other places. But I think based off of Colin, that like Steelers will win it again, just because like they know how that division works. They know how to beat all those teams in there. And Big Ben and Juju just obviously have that chemistry that can just destroy the secondary
My
teams.
Guy, yes. Juju is the man. Jersey's up there. Favorite jersey. Love Juju. Best player ever. Just saying. But I definitely agree with you, and I'm going to be as unbiased as possible. And whether you guys out there believe me or not, that's your own opinions. But I truly do think Pittsburgh's going to retain and regain the AFC North crown this coming season. I definitely think Cleveland's going to be a wild card team. If I had to pick right now, I definitely could see them taking a wild card spot in the AFC. It's just tough. You have Baker, who's in his 2nd year, and I love Baker, and you guys all know this already. He's one of my favorite players coming out of college. I'm hyped that he's kind of turning the culture around in Cleveland. Yeah. But at the same time, it's his 2nd year starting. It'll be his first full season as the starter, so that's something else that people kind of have to remember. But obviously, he lit it up last year, put up great numbers for a rookie. 2nd year slump, that's what you see a lot. Dak Prescott's the example I bring up all the time. Lit it up his rookie season. 2nd year took a massive step back. Yep. And I hope Baker doesn't do the same thing, and honestly, I don't think he will, but that's just something to consider before people start making all these assumptions about the Browns being the new kings of the AFC North. And you have a first-year head coach in there. A lot of personalities on the Cleveland offense that you brought up earlier. Might take a little bit more than one full season to gel and actually become a whole unit, essentially. So I definitely think they'll win games 100%. But, yeah, as far as competing with Pittsburgh, taking that division crown. I think it's going to be a little tougher than people are making it out to be. Pittsburgh has the quarterback. They have the coaching. They have the management. I think Pittsburgh still has a lot of pieces in place to be a threat in the AFC. Whether other people agree with me or not, that's fine. I don't need it. People are sleeping on Pittsburgh. I love it. It's not a position that Pittsburgh's used to being in as underdogs, so I think they're going to feed off it. I love it, so that's something I'm excited for sure.
I just think a good example would be like they played well without Le'Veon last year, and Antonio's not the only receiver in the team, so they can still obviously compete, and they barely missed the playoffs last year, so or did they make the playoffs?
People are sleeping on Dante Moncrief. Big signing by Pittsburgh. I think he's going to be a solid number 2 guy across from Juju. Put up awful numbers against Jacksonville, but if we're being honest, that has a lot to do with Jacksonville and the guys that were throwing him the ball in Jacksonville. So I think obviously having Ben, best deep ball thrower in football, throwing him the rock, I think he's going to be a solid number 2 guy. Still young, has a lot of potential. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's where we'll cut it off here. Went over a lot of topics, tried to keep it very broad, going over a lot of big things that are happening in the sports world right now. Just to kind of give you guys an understanding here, we're going to be doing this every week. Like I said in the beginning, this is going to be a weekly podcast hosted by myself and Zach. Like I said before, another weekly thing we're going to be doing is that heated question. So this week we kind of came up with our own, the top 5 most impactful offseason moves. But we would love to hear from you guys down in the comments. What would you guys like to see us debate about, whether it's just a ranking list or just an overall like topic or question that you'd like to see us answer for next week? So we're obviously going to be open to all suggestions. We would love to make that a more interactive segment that we do every single week, so we would love to hear any opinions or thoughts you guys have, as well as anything else. Do you guys agree with our list? Do you agree with our opinions on Kyler Murray? What do you guys think about the topics we talked about? And just in general, what topics would you like to hear us talk about more, or just in general for next week and moving forward? So we're all ears when it comes to the feedback from you guys. So we're really looking forward to having this as a weekly thing, implementing this a lot in the brand of Heated Sports, and just going forward, kind of tying this in with the social media accounts and with the website. And again, they'll be tagged here in text, but the website is going to be www.heated- emphasis on the dash sports.com, and the social media, we're mainly on Twitter and Instagram at Heated Sports _ emphasis on the _. So that's going to be everything for us here this week. If you guys are tuning in, we really appreciate it. We'd love to hear any feedback you guys have, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace out, guys.
Yeah, see you.